Hi everyone, welcome to Advice in Action, the conference from the Advice in Southampton Partnership. My name is Sarah and I'm the project coordinator for Advice in Southampton. I'm joined today by staff from Citizens Advice Southampton who are going to tell us a bit about our services, what you can expect from us and of course how to get in touch. So most of us have heard of Citizens Advice and some of us will have used Citizens Advice services. Can you tell me a bit more about how the organisation works?
If I start, Sarah, with that, so we provide free, confidential, independent and impartial advice. There are reasons for that. Firstly, the free, because we don't want cost of getting advice to be a barrier for somebody to get the help that they need. We need to be confidential so people can trust the service. So they come to us with quite sensitive issues and they have to be able to trust us. It can't just be implicit, it's explicit that they can come and talk about the problem that's affecting them. So we can give them the best possible advice. We are independent, so we're not part of government or any other organisation, so that helps people trust our service as well. So if they thought that we were working, say, for the local council and they came to us with a housing problem, they need to be able to be confident that they can talk to us and we will help them with their problem without any fear of interference. And impartial, so we don't judge people. We have to be able to deal with whatever problem people have without any judgment at all. People have very different lives, very different backgrounds, and that leads them to be able to trust our service as well. So they know that nobody's going to think badly of them for a decision that they've made, and we can just get on and help them. We work at, people, please feel free to chip in if I've forgotten something, if you think that there's another reason why people, why our principles are important. But we're a local organisation. So we were established in the 1950s, but we did have a history in Southampton before that, during the Second World War, when Citizens Advice Services were, or the CAB, was set up across the country to help people who were affected by war. And that went from, issues around getting hold of food, housing, if there was bombing, through to work issues, or it could be anything really. And that's how we started. After the war ended, our service was decommissioned in Southampton, but in the 1950s, we started again because the enduring issues that were affecting people's lives remained. And a lot of that was caused by the war. And we've been in business, unfortunately, or fortunately, ever since, helping over, last year we helped over 6,500 people with 12,000 issues. So that's quite considerable. And in previous years, when we were unaffected by pandemic, that would be something in the region of 7,500 people in a year with up to 20,000 issues. So quite a lot of change. Anything else do you want me to add to that?
In terms of, you mentioned Citizens Advice is a local organisation. Obviously, there are Citizens Advice offices all over the country. So how do they work together?
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you. So we're networked, I suppose. We're joined together by our membership of the National Association of Citizens Advice Bureaus. There are about 270 of us across the country. I think that includes Scotland, but yeah, so we are a network. We're national in coverage. So there is a citizens' advice in most local communities, but we are local independent charities. So our membership of National Citizens Advice allows us to share resources. So for example, we use a case recording system nationally, and also the access to really, really important resources like Advisonet, which is our advice information system that helps give people give our advisors the information they need to support people. The National Citizens Advice website is a wonderful resource for people who need advice but may not need to speak to somebody, and that's all coordinated at a national level. But locally, we develop services for our own community. So, for example, we have locally funded services for cancer support, people who suffer with multiple sclerosis, because those people and their families have very specific needs, and local organisations in the area want to fund that support locally.
Lovely, thank you. So thinking about Citizens Advice Southampton services now, who are those services available to?
So there's no barrier to accessing our services dependent on your age or gender or anything else. Anybody can access our service. And in fact, most of the people who access our services are of working age, and it's something that's really important, that there shouldn't be any barrier for people to get the advice that they need. I think we're one of the only services who can say that we don't have that we have that criteria. But also, one of the things that's really important is we do develop services that help specific groups of people, as I mentioned before, but that's targeted because they may have specific need. But our general advice service is open to anyone.
Brilliant, thank you. And so really anybody in the local area can make use of those services.
That's right, absolutely.
Great. And what kinds of issues do people ask about? What can you help with?
The main areas of advice are around benefits, and that includes claiming universal credit, specific disability benefits. Debt is a very large area of work for us, and some of these issues are interlinked. So, for example, debt and benefits very much link together often, and people may have health issues, housing issues. We have a specialist immigration service, which has been incredibly helpful for many people in Southampton. Southampton has a very diverse population, and along with that, immigration issues do arise. Problems with employment, issues around family and relationships. So people often, when things happen in their lives, they don't know where to turn. They haven't got experience of certain experiences. So for example, if they're facing relationship breakdown, understanding what their rights are, for example, we can support with all of those sorts of things.
Lovely, thank you, Liz. Okay, so I'm going to ask Paul now. Could you explain to me the different ways in which people can access your services?
Hi, Sarah, thank you. So I think, as Liz has already touched upon, you know, we're here for everybody, no matter where they're from or where they come from. We're here for absolutely everybody. So we know that one size doesn't fit all, and we also know that people like to access our services in different ways. So we've got at the first stage, we've got obviously our self-help online using our website, which lots of people use as a first instance before contacting us. We then also have our advice line, which is open Monday to Friday between 9:30 and 4, where people can phone and get initial advice and be triaged along the advice pathway. Now, at that time, sorry.
I think we're all used to the vagaries of having these meetings online now.
So I'll carry on. So, you know, the advice line is really important to us, and that's where a majority of our interaction with clients begins. We speak to a lot of clients on a daily basis with advice line, and you know, if they need further help, or we can point them in the right direction, or signpost them to another organisation, we'll do that at that time. We also have web chat, which is obviously another way, and it's a real-time advice giving service which clients can access on the internet. It doesn't run 24 hours. But if there is nobody available to actually take a web chat from a client, clients are then able to leave a message, and an email will be dealt with within 2 to 3 days. We also have our very exciting and very new video hubs. And this is something that we're very, very proud of. And we've taken a lead on this in Southampton, working in conjunction with Alltex and Southampton City Council to provide a video service where clients can visit either the Central Library or the Shirley Library and access an advisor face-to-face via video without having any technical need or expertise whatsoever. So literally, if you think of it a bit like the Big Brother diary room, a client can come and visit us at the library, sit down and get instant advice and help and support right away, speaking to one of our advisors like we are today. So that's something we're very excited about, and we're very proud to offer the people at Southampton that service. And of course, you know, we're also very aware that in these difficult times with COVID, that people will still need to see us face to face, especially if they're vulnerable or they have complex needs. So face to face appointments are available should clients need that help, and we'll only be too happy to help, obviously making sure that everything is safe and secure.
Lovely, thank you, Paul. So really a huge range of different ways to access advice. Liz?
Just to add to that as well, we're really aware that people, you know, part of the reason we developed the video advice is because we knew that very vulnerable clients weren't getting access to services, and it would be very difficult to mobilise a face-to-face service, drop-in face-to-face service again. So that was our response to that. But one of the very important things is that sometimes people have an advice need that they themselves don't know where to turn, but they may be in contact with another agency. For example, if they're a carer, they may be in contact with a caring agency, or they go to their GP and they talk about their problems, and it's clear there's a non-medical problem behind it. We developed a system, we work with a system called Refernet in Southampton. So it's agencies linked together that enables them to refer clients into us. So for example, if you know, a patient at a GP surgery is given a referral to a community prescriber for health, for a non-medical issue, that prescriber can give, with that patient's consent, pass their information to us via a secure portal called Refernet, and we can pick up with that patient their advice issue. So it levels the playing field for people who may not otherwise get advice, the advice that they need, and also for clients, for example, for carers, they may not have the time to make multiple phone calls and may need a bit of support from a carers agency to get the help they need from advice services. I hope that makes sense.
Thanks, Liz. So we've talked about lots of different ways that people can access our Citizens Advice Southampton services. What about people who might have access requirements, maybe physical access requirements, or they can't use the phone, or people who have limited English language? What can you do for those people?
So that's really important, and actually something that happened recently for us is we were able to move into a brand new office. Now, as a wheelchair user myself, I know firsthand that our old office wasn't the most friendlier places for people with disability or with decreased mobility, shall we say. But our new office is it's all on the flat, it's light and airy, it's COVID secure, and it's safe. There's plenty of space. We have obviously a toilet as well that's available for clients to use, which is got plenty of room as well, and our interview rooms are also accessible. At our old office, we didn't have such luxuries of being able to necessarily fit people in as quickly as we would like to be able to, because the meeting rooms were often taken up. So we're in a far better place to be able to actually see people face to face should they need to. And you mentioned there as well, Sarah, about people whose language isn't English, whose first language isn't English. You know, we've got the ability to use our language line, and that's a really simple thing for us to set up. We don't need any prior warning of that. We just need to know that actually English isn't the first language, and we can arrange for a translator to be present, albeit virtually via telephone. And that's something we're really keen on doing, because we want everybody to be able to access our service and feel comfortable in doing so. And I think the other thing is that we're always keen to hear feedback as well, so that if there's something that we could do better, or we haven't considered, it's really important that people come forward and tell us that, so we can improve.
Great, thanks very much, Paul. So
sorry,
really,
just to add to that as well, we have been working with the RNID. We are keen to make sure that services are accessible for people with hearing loss, and one of the things that they did was to come and look at the video hub to give us feedback on how it worked for people with hearing loss, and talking to our staff about how they can improve the service they offer for people with hearing loss. And it's some really important but small changes in our approach that help people with hearing loss to access advice. Sorry, thanks.
Great, so really exploring all the different ways that we can improve the service to make it accessible for absolutely anyone who needs it. I'm going to move on to Jo now. Jo is a welfare benefits caseworker. Jo, could you tell me a bit about what the client journey looks like for someone who might need benefits advice? What would they experience?
Well, it would depend exactly what their situation was, because if we have a home visiting service, which is specifically for people who are neighbourhood or housebound and would struggle to be able to get out, especially access normal advice services. So we have a referral system that any medical professional really, but mostly social services, can access to make sure that they get the benefit that they need. So we would home visit them. We would check to make sure what benefits they're getting, help them with any phone calls or applications that they need, and go through the whole process with them, and even advise carers and other family members if there was any additional benefits that they would need. So it's quite an inclusive service, but it's specifically for people who couldn't get into the office and would need to see somebody face to face for that personal assistance, because sometimes welfare benefits can be very complicated, and confusing for clients. We have other services for other people to access welfare benefits advice, which would be Macmillan or Maggie's, and we also have a dedicated multiple sclerosis advisor. So that would cover most of the very vulnerable, I think. But anybody can access our welfare benefit service because there's an advice line, as Paul said. We have all sorts of different ways of contacting us for that advice.
Thank you, Jo. So really, you've got those very intensive services for very vulnerable people, but then people can still get the help on benefits through the advice line, or presumably through the self-help materials on the website and so on as well.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Sarah, we do run a what's called the Help to Claim service, which is it's a local delivery of a national service that helps vulnerable people to apply for universal credit, and often, I mean, that's a almost totally digital service, and lots of people have problems with that, so we will work with people to help them make their initial claim for universal credit if they're having problems.
Thanks, Liz. So Jo, if someone comes to you with an issue that you can't help with, what would happen?
Well, because we're part of the Refernet system, we would always be able to access other services that might be more suitable for them. Sometimes if benefit claims have gone in and they perhaps need to be taken to appeal, we can refer them on to other services that can take it further. But we can do appeals in-house, especially if we've been working with that client and we know their story. It would be sensible for us to continue, but it's not always possible. So if it wasn't possible, we would refer them on, obviously with their consent.
Okay, so as a professional, so I have someone who I think is going to benefit from your service. As a professional, what do I need to know about referring? Will you give me updates on what's going on with their case?
Obviously, if that was okay with the client, we would always check with the client to make sure that they're happy with us to discuss the case and how it's proceeding. We always have to have third-party consent, and just to be able to talk to the welfare benefits and DWP, City Council, etc. So it's important that the client is central to everything we do.
Okay, and how about safeguarding issues?
Yes, we do have a safeguarding policy, and obviously we always take care to be aware and pick up on certain indications that somebody might be in a vulnerable position, and ensure that they are. We obviously would be able to refer on and seek further advice and help for them if they were in a vulnerable situation.
Okay, thank you. So I have this service user that I want to refer on to you. What should I suggest they do to prepare for their appointment with you?
Sometimes it's very difficult for them to prepare because they're not in a situation where they can access their paperwork very easily. So we can help them to some extent with that when we visit. But ideally, we would need some information, basic information. This can be very helpful if they've got a bank statement. So if they're having their state pension or their benefits or anything else paid in, a bank statement is a very good place to start because it would give their national insurance number and obviously details of what benefits they're already receiving, because sometimes people don't understand. For example, attendance allowance almost sounds like it's something you should get if you're looking after somebody. So carers allowance, attendance allowance, and all the other disability benefits can become very muddled for them. Best if we don't apply when they've already got the benefit. So it's always good to have something simple like a bank statement, but national insurance number, date of birth is a very good starting point.
Okay, so basic details, and if they can get paperwork together, then great. But if not, then you'll support them as best you can. Brilliant, thank you. Liz, just moving back to you now. So how could I be confident that my service user will get the right advice for them?
Okay, so we are accredited, so we have something called the Advice Quality Standard, which is externally audited every 3 years, but annually we're also audited for our, how our organisation operates, to make sure that we're doing following best practice and indeed meeting all of our legal obligations. Some of our advice areas are regulated, so debt advice, for example, is regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, and we have to adhere to all of the requirements of the FCA. Additionally, some service, our debt service, for example, is funded through the Money and Pension Service, and that comes with it quite a stringent set of requirements, and cases are audited very rigorously on a regular basis. So every quarter cases will be intensively analysed for quality of advice, and indeed all of our general advice is audited on a monthly basis, so quarterly basis, so that will be externally checked to make sure that the quality of advice is good, and if it's not, we have to put in place an action plan to improve where problems have been identified. So those are just some of the ways in which we monitor the quality of advice, and it's important to say that that external view of our quality is very important to give people confidence that they are getting the best possible advice.
Thank you. And what would someone do if they weren't happy with the service they'd received, or say a professional has a client who wasn't happy with the service they received?
Complain. Quite simply, we welcome complaints because they highlight to us where we can do things better. Obviously, we don't want to give reason for people to complain, but we don't want people to go away feeling that they've not had the answers they need, or they've not been treated in the way they expected. And like all organisations, we try and learn and put in place improvements, because it could be something that we could do better just by taking a relatively simple action.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd like to move on to Tom now. Tom's the volunteer. Sorry, Tom, what's your exact title? Volunteer coordinator, I've got.
I'm the volunteer recruitment coordinator.
Thank you. Nearly right. So we know that we have lots of volunteers working at Citizens Advice Southampton. Can you tell us a bit more about volunteering, what the role involves, what it's like to work with Citizens Advice?
Yeah, of course. So volunteers are really at the heart of the work we do at Citizens Advice Southampton. Without the generosity and the support of our volunteers, we wouldn't be able to see or advise nearly as many local residents as we do each day. Our volunteers are the first point of contact for any support received by us, whether that's by calling our advice line, coming into our offices, or visiting one of our video hub drop-ins. One of our friendly volunteers will be there to greet you, listen to what you have to say, and get you started to get the advice that you need. Beyond this, many of our volunteers are fully trained advisors, while others help with our research and campaign work that we do across Citizens Advice. We also have trustee volunteers who are essential to keeping us running smoothly and in the best position to deliver advice to the best of our abilities. All of this really makes us a volunteer-led organisation with different positions suited to all sorts of people at different stages of life, whether still at university or looking for something fulfilling to do in their retirement. We care that our volunteers feel supported during their time with us, and we make sure that they receive extensive training and that there is always a supervisor on hand so that they are never on their own to deal with anything.
Wonderful, thanks Tom. So it sounds like a whole range of opportunities for people if they want to get involved. So just on that as well, Tom, while you're here, so how would people get in touch if they want to volunteer?
Yeah, so getting in touch to volunteer is nice and easy. Simply visit our website, register your interest, and we will get in touch with an application form and details of our roles as soon as possible. We are always looking for more volunteers, so we welcome anyone to apply, even if they're not sure when they send in the application if it is for them. Once you have returned to us a completed application form, we will invite you to attend an information session where you can meet other hopeful volunteers and learn more about the roles that we have at Citizens Advice Southampton and the work that we do, giving you the chance to really see if volunteering with us is something that you would like to do. If you like the sound of volunteering with us still, all you have to do is attend an interview, and if you are successful, you can start your training with us at the beginning of our next training intake, getting you on your way to volunteering in no time.
Brilliant, thanks very much, Tom. And we'll share full contact details right at the end of this session. You mentioned there about research and campaigns volunteers as well. Liz, could you tell me a bit more about the research and campaigns aspect of the work at Citizens Advice?
Okay, yeah, it's a really important part of our work. When we support people with their problems, we collect a lot of information. Clearly that has to be, you know, kept private to the individual, but the data as a whole gives a real insight into the issues that are affecting people's lives. And an important part of our remit is that we campaign for change. So, for example, we know that the impact of losing the universal credit top-up of £20 over the COVID period has made a tremendous difference to people's lives and how they can support their families. And we've campaigned to keep the uplift along with Citizens Advice across the country, because we really feel it's an important issue. More locally, we use our data to support change at a local level. So, for example, we've been able to use information about how life is impacted for people who have who are affected by something called no recourse to public funds, where they do not qualify for any support in terms of benefits or you know, help from the state, and that has a huge impact on the lives of individuals and families. And we've been able to support people to contribute to research that will highlight how that impacts on them through no fault of their own, just terrible circumstances, and we feel that that's really unfair. We work really closely also with our local authority to keep them informed about issues in the local area. So we will provide them with case studies and data around issues. So, for example, we collect a lot of information about food bank usage and circumstances that lead to that, and that is really important, that they understand the scale and the stories behind food bank usage to be able to plan services more effectively. We've looked at, for example, the issues with debt and the impact of council tax collection methodology, and working with the council to improve how they deal with council tax arrears, for example, to make it a service that's more effective and communicates better to people in arrears about how they can get access to debt support, as well as, you know, making the language used in, you know, communication in letters, for example, easier to understand. So those are the sorts of areas where we can use our information to bring about change and improvement.
Thanks, Liz. So it sounds like there's an awful lot going on kind of behind the scenes, and I know I've seen that Keep the Lifeline campaign about the universal credit uplift on social media as well. I think that brings me to the end of my questions. Hopefully that's given everyone a really good overview of what Citizens Advice Southampton does, and really the organisation is here for everybody, and they can ask about any issue that they're facing, and we will do our absolute best to help. Thank you very much to Tom, Liz, Joe and Paul, and thank you everyone for listening. And I will leave you with full contact details for how to get in touch with Citizens Advice Southampton. Thank you.